I'm Dr. Cindy, a chiropractic internist and nutritionist, and your host of the Positively Altered podcast. So today we're going to start bottoms up. What does that mean? It's all about feet. So how many of you out there have a foot fetish? Okay, I know there's some. How many of you actually love feet? Are you in my camp? I absolutely adore feet. I don't know why. I don't know where that comes from. We're going to figure it out. But more importantly, your feet are actually a gateway, no pun intended there, to something bigger. So if you want to know what I'm talking about, hang tight. Don't go anywhere. We're going to take a quick listen to my sponsors because they're super important to me. And we're going to come back with my next guest and see why Gait matters.
Hello, my name is Heather Lord, and I am the COO of Professional Health Products. Cutting corners is an all too common practice in the dietary supplement industry. When my father founded Professional Health Products, he sourced the cleanest, most biologically active ingredients from around the globe. Today, that commitment remains, which is why the finest healthcare practitioners, like Dr. Cindy, have trusted us for more than 40 years. We oversee the entire process in our manufacturing facility, from sourcing and formulation to manufacturing and labeling. Today, we offer over 300 unique products that can be tailored to the nutritional and homeopathic needs of each individual. Most recently, we launched a proprietary genetic test, allowing our practitioners to get even more dialed in to their patients' health. To learn more about Professional Health Products, please talk to your practitioner or visit our website at phpltd.com.
Today, your life is going to be altered. I'm Dr. Cindy.
Welcome to Infinity. We have worked hard to create an electronic claims website that is simple and user-friendly. This is the public side. You can log into your personal web portal here. This is your dashboard. You can personalize it to your liking here. Our main focus has been to allow you to submit and edit claims as easy as possible. You will find our claims editor and claims processing is simple to use and straightforward. Our quick action bar is where you can find your most important information. Most of these icons will take you directly to the claims the number represents. You can easily view if you have any messages in your inbox of any unread alerts by looking for these blue numbers. To view the rest of our training videos to get the most of your Infinity experience, click this icon. We hope you find this web portal simple and easy to use. Thanks for letting us serve you.
I'm Dr. Cindy. Who wouldn't want to join me for the Positively Altered podcast? Welcome back. I'm so glad you hung tight because, as I mentioned, we're going bottoms up today, and I don't mean your rear end. I mean your feet, your true bottom. I want to welcome my guest today, the founder, the owner, the queen of Gait Happens, Dr. Courtney Conley. Courtney, I'm so excited to have you here today.
Thank you so much for having me. I've been looking forward to this.
Oh my
gosh.
Very
excited.
This is going to be great. I'm actually really excited too, because as I mentioned, I actually love feet. Do you love feet? I love feet.
I mean, I'm obsessed with feet. It's kind of weird.
But... So I think we just lost a couple listeners because there's going to be people, right? There's going to be people out there who are like, okay, these two women love feet. This is not my show, right? Not my show. But for those of you that either love feet or are curious why we love feet, you got to hang tight because this is going to be really cool. So let's dive in really, like, why feet? Let's just, everybody's got a story. I know you've got a story. Give everybody out there the story of like why the obsession, because it is an obsession or a passion.
I think both. I think when you're obsessed with something, it comes from this, personal quest because you are so passionate about it. So I think it's probably a little bit of both.
Okay, so let's go with both 50-50 split. How'd you get here? Walk us through why feet.
I've always been fascinated by the human body, but there's been this specific fascination with the feet for a very long period of time. I was a dancer for many years. I was in point shoes and, from a very young age, started forming bunions on my feet. I hated putting those point shoes on. I mean, I'd look around and all these dancers are like shoving a little bit of lamb's wool. And I'm like, how are they comfortable? I'm like, I just can't do it. I just could never get comfortable. And then I became a triathlete. So I started running a lot and cycling shoes. And it was a constant like struggle with foot pain. And so I went to, self exploration, thought I could learn it all myself. And, it's been quite the journey because I think the education that I received when I was in school has changed quite drastically and continues to do so, which is one of the reasons I love science so much is it's just constantly changing and we're learning so much. And I think more so now than ever before, we're really learning the importance of our foot health.
We are. And it's interesting, my background is similar, but while I was shoving my feet in point shoes and the ballet mistress, I believe they called her, right?
Yes.
Would walk around the room pinching my fat, I decided that ballet was probably not my strength because I'm pretty short and stocky, and I was going to go into modern dancing, which had its own set of challenges, dancing barefoot. But
Yes.
the lamb's wool was retired pretty young in my career, and I have great feet, Courtney. I'm pretty proud of. Like when people say they love feet, I have really cute feet.
Yeah.
Isn't
I
that
bet
like?
you do.
How
Next
many
time I
people
see
say
you,
that?
I'm going to have to take a look at them.
I will take off my shoes and socks and let you judge if I have really cute feet. The toenails are always painted, which is probably not
I
healthy,
mean,
but they're always painted. Nails are trimmed, feet are good. All
it's
right,
important.
enough about my feet. So I want to let's start with footwear actually, right? This is
Okay.
really pretty interesting to me because we were born without shoes on.
Yes.
Why are we wearing shoes?
It's such a good question because if you look at, I'm actually writing a book on all of this right now. And if you look at the history of footwear, we first just started wearing, footwear for protection. So it was just, a little bit of material just to protect from the elements. And as the years have progressed, we've suddenly, instead of function ruling the why behind footwear, it's now become more of a fashion behind the footwear. And I think it's really taken its toll on our bodies.
Yeah, I have to admit, yesterday I was out shopping with my daughter. I bought a really hot, or as she says, fire, because that's what the kids say
Mm,
now, a really fire pair of boots, which makes no sense to me. They're silver and they've got heels, and I put them on. She goes, "Are they great?" And I go, "They're so uncomfortable, but they're so pretty." And
yes.
I bought them. How dumb was that?
I mean,
Because they look
it is
great.
the biggest challenge, but the way I've been teaching this is having a shoe spectrum. We're not saying don't ever wear the fancy, silver boots. We're just saying wear them for a short amount of time. And then when you're not wearing those, wear shoes that are actually going to allow your foot to be in an environment where it can get stronger, stay mobile, things like that. So you can kind of counteract a little bit because I don't think I'm going to win the race here and say everybody needs to be in platypus shoes, as my daughter would say, 24 hours a
Okay, so platypus to stilettos, we've got some challenges here.
day.
But let's help everybody. I actually want to go right there with the shoe, right? Because some people are
Yes.
probably just going ready, like, okay, then what shoe do I wear? Like, Crocs, Birkenstocks, Platypus, Nike, who supposedly claims to build a really great shoe. I'm not sure they build a really great shoe for our feet. Um,
Yes.
what do we do there, right? Like, are there certain brands, types of shoes that we really should stay away from? And more importantly, why, right? Like, why should we not go a certain direction versus you just saying, it's not a good shoe?
Yeah. I think, well, first we'll start here. Nike actually developed a toddler shoe as of recently. And their marketing for the shoe was fantastic. It was, we've developed a shoe that is going to ensure proper foot development for your child. And these were the characteristics that they mentioned. Wide toe box.
Mhm.
So I'm going to bring in, this is Eddie. I
Okay,
name
so for those of
my,
you that are not watching, Courtney is holding not a human being named Eddie, but a
no, it's a
skeletal
foot
foot
model.
that she's named Eddie, just because some people are
Yes.
listening. So, okay,
Yes.
great. Let's Eddie.
Eddie, I'm a very big Pearl Jam fan. So this is my tribute to Pearl Jam, Eddie Vedder. So the toes are the widest part of the foot. So when we select footwear, that is my number one non-negotiable is a wide toe box. Because if you think about it from a balance perspective or a strength perspective, if my toes can splay, I'm going to have better control and I'm going to have better balance. And I will explain this to my patients. If you were to take a rubber band and tie it around your toes and try to balance versus do the exact opposite, it's not a hard sell. It just makes sense. So there's a difference between a wide toe box shoe and a wide shoe. And that's
Okay.
a really important thing for people to understand, because when you just increase the width of the shoe, they'll make it at, the ball of the foot, for example. So people will put their foot in there and they'll be like, oh, this feels great. There's more width. If it still tapers at the toes, your toes are still being squeezed together. And that can cause problems. I mean, there is research that will connect the two dots here. Hallux valgus, so bunions, weakness of the foot, hammer toes, neuromas. I mean, any type of forefoot issue can be contributed to poor footwear. So that's kind of my number one. And I think when you're trying to find footwear to transition into this functional footwear world, if you will, you can find companies like Ultra Running, Topo Athletic. So those are kind of our transitional shoes, because they still have a significant amount of stack height or cushion on them. And some of them, Topo, will have a heel to toe drop. So that means that the heel sits higher than the toes.
Now, do we want that?
Depends. No, in a functional world, we want our heel and toes to be on the same plane. It allows better alignment of our bodies. It allows our tissues to be in the appropriate length tension relationship. However, the majority of us have been walking around in footwear that has decreased the strength of our foot, in a higher heel to toe drop. So you start to change what the tissue is doing. So if someone has diagnoses like heel pain or, Achilles issues, I have to really transition wisely. And that's when I will start them in a 5 millimeter, but then we'll work on function and drop it down, things like that. So in an ideal world, no, I want a flat shoe, I want a wide toe box, and I want a sole that's thin and flexible. Those
Okay,
are
so
ideal.
I have an entire closet of pointed cowboy boots that you would probably turn your
I've
nose
seen
up.
them.
Yeah,
I've seen them when we've been together.
yeah. Okay, so all right, so we know those aren't good for me. But if I'm not in cowboy boots and I'm not barefoot, which is actually my choice, I'm in a flip-flop, flat, toes are splayed, even heel toe, and you're smiling. So you're gonna okay, go ahead, beat me up a little bit over the flip-flop.
I tell my daughter it's worse. The flip-flop's worse than the real F word in my house. Because those are like banned in my household. Poor kid. So here's the deal with the flip-flop. When you're walking, in order to keep the flip-flop on, you have to curl the toes. You have to press the toes into the flip-flop, or else your heel would slide back out of it. So you start to adopt this kind of flexor pattern. And so that again also changes the muscle firing patterns and what happens above the foot. And I think it's interesting because when we look at a lot of rehab protocols for strengthening the feet, you'll often see people like, I'm supposed to scrunch a towel, I'm supposed to pick up marbles. And I have found that that's only, very, very early on stages of foot rehabilitation, because most people are actually quite good at curling the toes because it's a compensation pattern for a weak foot. You don't curl the toes in the Gait cycle. Everything is, lengthened. So we want to have strength in a lengthened position. So flip-flops are just making it, they're easy to put on, but they're harder in the long run for your body.
So would you support my barefoot protocol?
I would.
It's interesting. The very first thing I do when I get home is I kick off the shoes. I actually don't like shoes at all. If it was up to me, I'd be barefoot everywhere,
Yes.
except maybe outside in Chicago because it is a little hard on the elements. I would work barefoot. I would teach barefoot. I would do everything barefoot.
Yep.
What is the value for those of us that are constantly in shoes? Let me ask that differently. I want it the reverse, right? So what is the value in suggesting to people that they do take off their shoes and ground and put their feet flat on the floor in situations where they really don't have to be in shoes?
We have thousands of receptors on the bottoms of our feet. So there's a bunch of sensory receptors that are dying for information. They want to be stimulated. They want to grab information from the environment, send it to our brains so that we can have good motor output. The more stuff we have between the sole of the foot and the ground, you start to compromise that sensory input. And so that starts to affect things like balance as we age and strength, mobility. So when our feet can feel the ground, the foot can splay, you gather this sensory information. And I really think that not only encourages a better environment for your foot, but for the rest of your body.
Now, does it matter if you wear socks?
That's such a good question because the majority of socks, I haven't worn socks in probably, I don't know, a couple years because I just can't seem to find a sock that I like that doesn't squeeze my toes together. This is a fun fact. I also have webbed toes. So the toe sock thing, right? I love toe socks. I have webbed toes. I can't wear toe socks. So one of my patients was like, you could just cut it and then sew it together. And I was like, the other problem is I don't know how to sew. So we're causing more issues here. But toe socks I love, but like compression socks, like the ones that just squeeze your foot together, for those people who have bunions or forefoot deformities, go ahead and put a compression sock on and look at what your foot looks like. It's not comfortable.
So socks are right up there for me with the people who created underwear. I don't understand, like we're putting a shoe on. Why can't the shoe be comfortable enough and fitted correctly that we don't need a barrier, right? It's the same thing kind of with pants. I'm not really sure who came up with the whole underwear thing and why that's a necessary thing.
Yeah. I mean,
I don't know.
I don't know either.
So we'll just throw that in the universe and see if somebody can, come be on the podcast as a guest to explain why those two things are essential in our environment, right? Okay, so let's work up. So feet. Listen, we stand on them all the time, right? We're working up. So what happens? Can you give us Gait 101 in the next couple minutes? I know that's a tough question, but in terms of like, what happens? What do we look for? How do we know it's good? How do we know it's bad? Like, why is our actual gait, that pattern of movement once we use our feet, so important for health?
It literally initiates a cascade of events that goes up the kinetic chain, that goes up the body when we walk. When we're walking, it should be a soft graze of the heel. So walking is a heel striking pattern. And when that heel hits the ground, it starts to unlock the foot. And that's our first opportunity for shock absorption. And the arch can lengthen and widen, and we absorb shock. And then that cascades up the kinetic chain. And then we start to have all these beautiful events that can occur. Then as we continue through the gait cycle, it's also the foot that then becomes stronger. And then that arch recoils and it stiffens up so that we can propel forward in propulsion. And so when we start to alter the initiation of what's happening when our foot hits the ground, you will see implications of that up the chain. I mean, nobody gets a free lunch is what I like to say. So when you start, cheating the system from the ground up, you're going to pay for it somewhere.
So headaches, neck pain, kyphosis, the arching of the upper back, right? And the list goes on. Can some of those conditions really have been prevented if we had proper feet and gait?
I mean, I'm a foot person, but my answer to that is 100%. In fact, I was just looking at a couple Gait videos before we got on. That's all I do on my phone. My daughter's like, "Can I see your phone?" I'm like, "Well, if you want to see people's Gait videos, yes." Um, especially when you see things bilateral. So this person had, the very similar foot presentation, both feet. And I'm very cautious when I say the word flat feet because that is not a bad thing. It doesn't have to be a bad thing. But when you see those on both sides, you always have to look up who's driving the car. What's the pelvis doing? What are the hips doing? How are they driving function at the feet and vice versa? So I think looking at that whole system is so important.
So what do we do? So everybody has a set of feet. Give me a couple, like, okay, this afternoon, I've got 4 minutes of free time. What do I do with my feet to make sure they're healthy?
So just some basic things. You should be able to do what we call toe yoga. So this would be keeping the 4 toes down as you lift the big toe.
Okay.
Pressing the big toe down and lifting the 4 toes.
Does it matter how high the toes go?
When you go to lift the 4 toes, you also want them to lift straight. Remember the whole toe curling thing? Often people who don't have good extensor strength of their toes, when they go to lift the toes, it'll kind of look like they're still curled. So you want to be able to have that good extension. And the toe dexterity is very important. It's where we will start people is if you can't do these types of things, what type of information do you think your feet are sending to your brain? It's, I tell my patients, it's like having static on a cell phone. If that's even a thing anymore.
Not anymore.
I don't think so. I know, I'm dating myself here.
We just have people listening into our phone conversations now. We don't have static.
That's right. But like being able to lift up all your toes, spreading the toes, that's also very important. When you look down at your foot, if it looks like it's been stuck in a shoe, so you'll see people's feet, their toes, they look like they're still in a shoe when their foot's not in a shoe because their big toe and their little toe they look tapered. And I'll say, can you splay your toes? And they won't be able to do that. That's a problem.
Now we've got some modalities on the market, right, where we can put, I don't even know what you would call them, right? But they're products that fit over the toes in order to do exactly what you're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Do you utilize those? What do you think of those types of products?
Hold on a second, because I wear them all the time when I'm not
You're going to show,
sleeping.
Oh yeah. I have those at home. I have them. They're on my counter. They don't fit in my cowboy boots.
No, they do not. Do not try to put these in your cowboy boots.
Yeah, they don't fit in the cowboy boots. So they sit on the counter.
It's I've worn toe spacers now for probably 4 years.
Okay.
They align my toes. They do the splay for me, right? I can also you can still work the intrinsic function of your foot. And that really is an easy, intervention, but it does take time. People whose toes do not splay well, this will be very uncomfortable. So it's like 10 minutes. You're going to want to throw them across the room. And it's a slow, progressive change. And I think the education with all of this is very important. This stuff doesn't happen overnight. But once your toes start to splay, you will go into your shoe closet and you're going to be like, nope, I'm just not wearing those today because I know how they're going to make me feel.
Yeah, so. It's so interesting, I think, how we purposely torture ourselves with some of the choices, that we spoke about a few minutes ago, because sometimes they just look nicer.
Yeah. And, there's sports, right? So sports like rock climbing and, cleats and all, there is a tool for the trade. So you have to be cognizant of that. And it's taking care of your body and your feet outside of the, a current environment that you have to be in. But You don't have to wear heels 8 hours a day.
Right. So don't.
Right?
Yeah, it was interesting. I just had a great conversation with my son who's out your way. He's going to school in Colorado, and he just picked up his mountaineering rock climbing shoes that are shaped so distorted, right? Like they're, you know what I'm talking about, right? And they're like almost a 90-degree angle. They look like these shoes. And he says, Mom, they're the most uncomfortable things on the planet. But, I don't really want him to plummet to his death. So being that
Right.
he's, bouldering and going in between rocks, he needs the right shoe so that he doesn't die off the 14,000 foot mountain that
Yeah, I
we
mean,
have out west. But it's interesting, right? And yet it's got to be so bad for him to shove his feet into those products.
I think I always use the concept of stacking. So
Okay.
in other words, if I know I'm going to be wearing this rock climbing shoe for X amount of hours, I want to make sure that the foot that I'm putting into the shoe is functioning at its best capacity. So I'm going to pay attention to the mobility of the toes, for example, if I'm going to be shoving them into that shoe. I'm going to be paying attention to the strength of my foot. So if I'm rock climbing, I have to power up through my foot. So I'm going to make sure that I have a strong foot and a mobile foot so that I can put this jet engine in this shoe. And then when the shoe's off, I'm not going to, suffer from the consequences of a weak foot, because I see a lot of rock climbers that will come to me with neuromas in pain because they put a weak foot in a bad shoe. And eventually it's going to catch up to you.
Absolutely. Everything catches up to you, doesn't
That's
it,
right.
Courtney? I know.
It does.
We're kind of doomed when we don't take care of ourselves, aren't we, a little bit?
That's right.
All
We need
right.
low-hanging fruits. Wear wide toe box shoes and go for more walks.
Okay, so that's the big advice. And do your toe, the exercise you gave us, right? Raise the big toe, raise the other four,
Right.
make sure they're straight, wear your toe separators, and it's just a great start, right?
Yeah. I mean, I think from not only just acutely, but from a longevity perspective, little things like taking your shoes off and walking for a couple minutes barefoot, doing just what you said, wearing appropriate footwear when you don't have to be in the wrong footwear, sitting at your desk or standing at your desk, just moving your feet around can go a very long way.
Okay, so do you watch the way everybody walks wherever you go?
Yes.
And then do you
And
hand out a business card and they're like, you're not doing that right. You're going to need my help, right?
well, it's funny because my fiance, because he lives in New York City, and so I have a field day there because it's like I can't even just watching people walk in the footwear. And I'll be obsessed. I'll be like, Joe, I'm like, look at this. And he's like, Courtney, leave them alone. They're probably happy. And I'm like, but in a couple years, they're going to be in my office. So, we got to be proactive here.
They are. See, what's great though, at least, is if you're looking mostly at people's feet, and I know the gait's part of it, as a chiropractor, I'm looking at their ass because I'm watching the pelvis and the sacroiliac joint. And I'm like, if I could just put my hands on those joints and see how they're moving, right? And then I'm like, oh my
That's
God, I
right.
was just watching that person's ass for like 20 minutes. It's not good to get caught doing that in public.
No, it's
It
not.
really isn't. Oh
No.
my gosh. All right. So you're involved in this organization, right? Feet Around the World. What is that? What's going on?
Feet around the world. So the organization actually, so it's this Healthy Feet Alliance. And, the goal is to spread this word of paying attention to your feet. And over the past couple years, it has grown significantly as far as even clinicians and the layperson and being, just aware of these things. When I started doing this, there was one functional footwear company out there that I knew of, which was Vivo Barefoot. And now, especially within the last 5 years, there's hundreds. There's hundreds. And the fashion is coming, I think. And I actually, it's an easier sell to my patients in Colorado than it is to my New York people. So I'm sure it's environmental, but the goal of this is to spread the word of foot health, to get people really be aware of this. One of the things I always talk about is fall risk. And there was some really interesting research that came out looking at the predictors of falls as we age. And what they found was that toe strength, toe weakness is one of the single biggest predictors of falls. And if you think about it, if you were to stand up and just kind of lean forward, you should feel your toes engage into the floor.
Mm-hmm.
And that's one of the things that helps prevent us from falling. And as we age, we lose strength in our feet. We lose sensation in those receptors. And if you don't take care of those things, and they can be, and that's a low hanging fruit. And so if we can, pay attention to those, and if that is something that's so easily can be incorporated into what we're doing, that it would reduce fall risk, I mean, why would we not be doing that? So
Mhm.
that was a long-winded answer to your question, but that's kind of my goal with these alliances and with spreading the word on this stuff, is I really think it can have an impact on, not just the foot, but us as humans and
I,
wellness.
I think it's great, right? I think, we focus on so many other aspects of health. Why not start again, bottom up, and make sure that that's healthy? Now, before
Yeah.
you and I jumped on to do this recording, you made a comment to me that your feet are like your hands. So I have to ask, and I'm curious, you see these people, right, who either don't have function of their hands for a variety of reasons, or they just choose to, let's go out there. But like, how do you play the piano with your feet? I mean, should the feet really be as versatile as our hands if we train them and took care of them properly?
I mean, if you think about, where we have the most real estate in our brains, it's our hands, our feet, and our lips. So when I look at my, I'll have my patients, I'm like, can you lift your pointer finger? And they have no problems with dexterity of their hands because we use them so much. When we go down and start that toe yoga and they're all, confused and they're trying to extend their backs to extend their toes, you know that there's a problem there. And so, yes, I do think that we can have the dexterity and the control at our feet that you exhibit with your hands. We just, have chosen to shove them in, the word in our industry is a shoe coffin.
The shoe,
So.
the shoe coffin. That's fair. All right. So this is going to tell you how I spend my free time, right? But,
Okay.
sometimes I check out those silly things on TikTok or Instagram where you have to look at your feet, and if one toe is longer than the other or they're all even, it means something. Is there any validity to that kind of stuff in terms of the toe length and how that can help or hurt us?
Well, it's interesting. So, one of the biggest ones we'll see is the second toe is longer than the big toe. And that's called a Morton's toe. And it can change some of the mechanics at the foot. The toes can be slanted. They can be, it's a Roman typed foot or a Greek toed foot. And just to keep it simple than rather trying to make it complicated, if you just allow all of those toes to be in a wide toe box, then you don't have to worry about that. They have specific shoes for all of this, but if you're starting from ground zero, just make sure there's enough room for them all to splay appropriately.
So that brings us back to the pointed toe shoe, where we used to be really excited if all our toes were even because it was easier to stand on them, right? If they were all the same length, and probably a whole lot less painful. I know one
Yes.
of my sons has an enormous big toe. Not that we stick boys typically in point shoes anyway, but I don't think that would have been his gift. So,
No.
Maybe there's some professions we stay out of based on the length
Hey.
of our toes. All right. So another burning question I have, because you mentioned, you take care of athletes and some high end people. So I have to ask the question, right? So I think there's been the Phoenix Suns and the San Francisco 49ers. What team or what sport has the worst feet?
Yeah.
Or which team has the best feet?
Oh.
Like, who do we admire, as far as their feet next time we're observing them?
I think it's really across the board, because if you look at the types of footwear in all of those sports, they're all have been in footwear that has constricted their foot function for very long periods of time. So when they were kids, there's a reason these guys are elite athletes. And the interesting thing, I think, especially what we're seeing now, is athletes are getting bigger and stronger.
Okay.
I mean, and if you look at, we'll go to golfing, for example. We'll switch it up a little bit. If you look at the golfers now, it's my father and I talk about this all the time. Then the golfers when I was growing up, I mean, they look like linebackers on the golf course. People are bigger and stronger. The NFL, these guys are huge. And they're building these jet engines, these powerful bodies on paper airplanes of feet, on feet that they do not pay attention to. And we know that when we're walking and running, we put massive amounts of loads through our feet. So walking 4 to 6 times our body weight. Running, those numbers can jump up to 11. So when you have these professional athletes that are getting bigger and stronger with more loads going through their foot, and they have feet that just cannot, come to the task or, do the job of what's required, you're going to see a lot of problems. And that's why I think that more of these athletes are reaching out. They're starting to pay attention. If you look at the NFL, a lot of their warm-ups now, they're taking their cleats off and they're on the field barefoot. They're feeling the ground. They're getting more power.
Interesting.
And that's what I think we really need to be paying attention to. Because
So-
again, I want to help these guys when they're in their sport, but also, when they're 20 years down the road, they need to be able to walk.
Right. And I'm assuming we don't have a wide box toe cleat on the market yet.
There's a company, Natural Athletics. They're coming. The question with all the wide toe box stuff is going to be, can you put your, fashion sense to the side? Cycling cleats, that's another one. There's lake cycling, bont cycling. So they're coming with footwear. Zero Shoes just had one of the guys in the NBA with one of their shoes in the NBA Finals this year.
Oh, neat.
Yes.
Neat.
And, it'll be interesting to see where it goes. Now, I would love for all of these sports to kind of adopt more of this functional footwear, kind of these shoes. But in reality, I think if we want to really have better conversations, it's the stacking. Have a strong foot, have a more mobile foot. And if this is the shoe you need to wear on race day or on performance day, so be it. But when you get out of that, your training should be done in a functional shoe. Allow your foot to get stronger. And then on race day, you can perform.
I love it. Before we take a quick break, Courtney, I'm going to try to get that out in English because
Yes.
Really I need the break in order to do this in English. Run past for all of us again. Just throw out some brands that are really important that we start to take a look at and find some shoes that are good quality.
Xero, so Xero, Lems, Ultra Running, Topo Athletic. Ultra and Topo are going to be a little more of your transition. Shoes like Wildling, Vivo Barefoot. On my website, I have a favorite products page, and we have it from casual shoes, dress shoes, running shoes, sandals. They're all listed there, and you can go down a pretty big rabbit hole. But there are now there's shoe stores. Like we have a shoe store here in Boulder, Stride Lab, that they only sell functional footwear now, which is fantastic for people to try.
It's great. I love it. All right, everybody hang tight. You got to come back to get a hold of that website, which we will give you, but we're going to take a quick break from our sponsors. And then Courtney, we're going to do my rapid fire questions. You up for that?
Sounds great.
All right, I
Yes.
can't wait. Everybody sit tight. Grab a comfy spot if you haven't already. We'll be right back. This is your weekly dose of Dr. Cindy, the Positively Altered podcast. Stop. Hit that follow button now and spread the love with Positively Altered. And we're back with Dr. Courtney Conley talking about all things bottom up, feet, gait, and everything associated with it, including good footwear. But now we're going to move on to the rapid fire questions. Courtney, you ready for me?
I'm ready. Let's do it.
All right, here we go. Question number 1. If you were the ruler of the universe, who would you trust to drive your chariot?
Eddie Vedder.
Wait, hold on now. See, this is why this is never rapid fire, because I need clarification. Is it because you trust him or just because you love him?
I feel like there'd be speakers on my chariot, and we'd just be blasting Pearl Jam the whole time. It'd be a fun.
Oh my God, I love that. Okay, so what song are you running down the town center to?
Well, I have one tattooed on my arm.
What does that say?
Just Breathe.
Just breathe. Oh, I love that for
The
a lot of
lyrics
reasons.
are in my house right here.
Oh my gosh, check that out. You are a fan.
I am a fan. I am a fan.
You are a fan. So if you have a copy of my book, you're going to cross off the Dr. Cindy and write Eddie Vedder across the cover, right? Is that how that goes? Just breathe. You're going to change the title? I'm on to you, girlfriends. All right, number 2. If you had to change your name, just like you have to change your password every so often, what would you change your name to?
Oh gosh.
Eddie Vedder.
What would I change my name to?
You didn't say Eddie Vedder.
I didn't say Eddie Vedder. Gosh, that's a good question. I mean, my dog's name is Hallex, like your big toe. So
Maybe you should be
So-
like Valgus or Varus then.
Yeah.
You could be like, yeah.
yeah, that's probably where we'd go. I
All right,
can't
I'm
believe I
glad to
just said
assist you
that.
on the name change. So now I can break into all of your stuff because I know what name you're going to use instead of the password. All right. If all animals on the earth could be domesticated, what would you pick as your family pet? Besides then, the obvious that you have.
Oh my. Probably a lion.
A lion? Oh,
Yes.
that's pretty cool.
I love lions.
Do you?
Yes.
Where'd that come from?
I don't know. I like the kind of, king of the jungle type thing going on.
Did you watch The Lion King when it came out like 472 times? Yeah, me too. Kind of like that one. It was a good flick for sure.
It was.
All right, what food should be considered breakfast food that is not?
Cookies. I love cookies.
What kind of cookie?
I'm like straight up like I'm on a good chocolate chip. I like it a little like crispy on the outside, but then when I go to New York, it's my first stop. Every time I go there, I tell Joe, I'm like, we got to go get my cookies.
What's your cookie spot?
Chip City.
That's what it's called?
Yep.
Chip City. We'll give a
And
shame
they have like
for Chip City.
they get it's the menus, so they get a little fancy, but I just like straight up chocolate chip.
Nice. All right, last question, which I almost wanted to replace this question, but I'm going to ask it anyway.
Okay.
What is your favorite body part and why? and now we got to exclude feet because I know the answer to that question, right? So let's do it this way. What is your favorite body part on you and why?
So it can't be anything with my feet.
It's your feet, isn't it?
Yeah, I'm like I have a weird obsession in particular with the calcaneus, the heel, and the big toe. Because they're very important.
What makes like is there such a thing as like a sexy calcaneus and a sexy big toe? What are you looking for?
If you look at the way that bone was like developed and like how that we have that fat pad that was designed to heel strike, I just think that's really cool. And then the big toe, if you can't push off your big toe, you got problems. So in my world, that's the most important part of the body.
So Courtney, in the beginning, I said I thought it was a 50-50 split between obsession and passion. I think based on that answer, I'm going to go 60-40 obsession to passion. I think you just tipped the scale.
I know. Sometimes it gets a little weird, but it is.
Listen, and no judgment. I think it's great. I told you, I love feet. I don't understand why people are grossed out by feet. I think they're awesome. And I suppose in the next life, maybe I'll be a podiatrist since I really like feet. They don't,
that's right.
They don't keep me away, Courtney. I love feet. I love to look at feet. It's great. And I love my new silver boots. So we're going to go with that. All right. For everybody out there, Courtney, how do we find you? Give us some websites, give us products, give us whatever you want to give so people can, get a hold of you and check out their feet and get into some good shoes.
Thank you. Gait Happens is our website. We kind of have two pathways when you get there. So there's a layperson pathway. So if you're just interested in foot health, foot strength, virtual work, and then we also have for the clinician. So we have live courses, online courses to help clinicians better assess their patients. And then I think the resources section, because we do get a ton of questions about what type of shoe should I wear. So there's a lot of information on there as far as what type of footwear, how to transition into this type of footwear. There's toe spacers, and I developed a toe strengthener, so that's all on there, and we got all the foot stuff.
Oh my gosh, I absolutely love it. This will be great. So please make sure you check out Dr. Courtney Conley because feet are just essential. Hard to function well
Yes.
without them. So we're going to keep taking care of them. Courtney, it's been an absolute pleasure. I'm so thrilled that you were here. If any of you out there are looking for more information about me, please check us out at drcindyspeaks.com. If you want to shoot us an email, we'd love to hear from you. And that is hello@drcindyspeaks. And, go check out the book, Positively Altered, Finding Happiness at the Bottom of a Chemo Bag, wherever books are sold. And if you don't want to read it anyway. I mean, don't read it anyway. Just get the audio version. You can take a quick listen. My favorite thing today, Courtney, besides just catching up with you, because I absolutely adore you. I think you're brilliant. I love the obsession and the passion to help further the advancement of foot health. But quite frankly, at the end of the day, I love that, I got a friend who loves feet. Always looking for that.
I'm here for all your feet needs.
Oh my gosh. And I'm keeping you. Absolutely. I hope all of you taking a quick listen to this podcast and learning about feet and gait were left positively altered.